The sun was setting behind the hills of Jerusalem, casting long shadows on the stone walls of the royal palace. The air was heavy with an unsettling silence, as if the entire city was holding its breath, sensing the tragedy that was approaching. At the heart of that silence, a story of power, lust, and betrayal was unfolding. A story that would forever mark the legacy of Israel's greatest king, David. Join me in this fascinating and tragic tale of lust, desire, betrayal, death, and love. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. Blessings. I hope this content serves to edify your life, and that all doubts and questions about this topic are clarified, that you find the most sincere and clear answers. David was born in Bethlehem, in the tribe of Judah, the son of Jesse, a shepherd and farmer. He was the youngest of 8 brothers, and from a young age, he stood out for his bravery and faith in God. Though his family held no great political relevance, David grew up in a humble environment, tending his father's sheep. During this time, he developed skills as a shepherd and musician, and learned to trust God in difficult situations, such as when he defended his flock from lions and bears. The prophet Samuel, guided by God, arrived in Bethlehem in search of the future king of Israel. Though Jesse presented his older sons, God revealed to Samuel that none of them were the chosen one. Finally, David was called from the fields, and to everyone's surprise, Samuel anointed him with oil, signifying that he would be the next king of Israel. However, at that time, Saul was still king, and David returned to his duties as a shepherd. David's life changed drastically when the Philistines threatened Israel. The giant Goliath challenged the Israelite army, but no one dared to face him. David, bringing provisions to his brothers on the battlefield, heard the challenge, and filled with faith in God, offered to fight Goliath. Armed only with a sling and 5 stones, David defeated the giant with a precise shot. This victory made him a national hero and caught the attention of King Saul. After his triumph over Goliath, David was brought to King Saul's court. He became Saul's armor-bearer and a skilled musician who soothed the king's tormented spirit. Additionally, David proved himself a brave warrior in battles against the Philistines, earning the people's respect and the friendship of Jonathan, Saul's son. However, David's popularity stirred Saul's jealousy, who began to see him as a threat. As David gained more recognition, Saul tried to kill him multiple times. David had to flee and live as a fugitive, taking refuge in caves and deserts. During this time, he showed his integrity by sparing Saul's life twice, even when he had the chance to take revenge. David trusted that God would protect him, and that, in his time, he would be crowned king. Finally, Saul and Jonathan died in a battle against the Philistines on Mount Gilboa. Upon hearing the news, David deeply mourned their deaths, especially Jonathan's, whom he loved like a brother. This event marked the end of Saul's reign and opened the path for David to take the throne. After Saul's death, David was anointed king of the tribe of Judah and ruled from Hebron for 7.5 years. However, the rest of Israel's tribes followed Ishbosheth, Saul's son. After a period of conflict and Ishbosheth's death, all the tribes of Israel recognized David as their leader. Finally, David was crowned king of all Israel and established his capital in Jerusalem, where he reigned for 33 more years. Thus, David went from being a humble shepherd to becoming the most celebrated king of Israel, remembered for his bravery, his faith in God, and his legacy as a man after God's own heart. But something tragic and shocking happened in the life of this man of God. Spring arrived, the time when kings went to war. That year, David sent Joab and his army commanders to fight against the Ammonites, but he stayed in Jerusalem. Joab and his men defeated the Ammonites and conquered the city of Rabbah. One afternoon, after resting, David got up and began to stroll on the rooftop of his palace. David, the shepherd turned king, the man after God's own heart, had fallen into temptation. From the height of his terrace, he spotted a beautiful woman named Bathsheba, the wife of Uriah, one of his most loyal soldiers, as she bathed. Bathsheba's beauty captivated him, and in that moment, lust clouded his judgment. What followed was a series of desperate and dark decisions that would lead not only to Uriah's ruin, but also David's own. He asked his servant to gather information about the woman. The servant returned and told him her name was Bathsheba, daughter of Eliam, and that she was married to Uriah the Hittite. Without saying a word, being the proud, all-powerful and imposing king, he ignored the words spoken to him and kept thinking about the moment he saw that beautiful woman, unknowingly being led step by step into lust. But in the end, he made the decision to send for her. David sent for Bathsheba and slept with her. Soon after, she sent him a message: "I am pregnant." The words echoed in David's ears like distant thunder. He knew his sin could not remain hidden. Uriah, an honorable man, was away fighting on the battlefield. David tried to cover his mistake by summoning Uriah home, hoping he would spend the night with his wife and believe the child was his. But Uriah, loyal to his fellow soldiers, refused to enjoy the comforts of home while his brothers were at war. Frustrated and desperate, David made a decision that would stain his reign with blood. He sent Uriah back to the front with a letter for Commander Joab. In it, David ordered that Uriah be placed on the front lines and then abandoned to die. Joab, though surprised by the order, complied without question. Uriah fell in battle, and with him, David's innocence. When Bathsheba learned of her husband's death, she mourned in silence. David took her as his wife, and she gave birth to a son. But the Lord was not pleased. The prophet Nathan was sent to confront David with a parable. A rich man who stole the only lamb of a poor man. David, enraged, declared, "The rich man deserves to die." Then Nathan stared at him and said, "You are that man." Nathan's words pierced David's heart like a sword. He fell to his knees in repentance, but the consequences of his sin were already in motion. The son Bathsheba had borne became ill and died after 7 days, and a sword of discord would never depart from his household. David, prostrated on the temple floor, wept inconsolably. His crown lay to the side, a symbol of his human frailty. Bathsheba, in a corner, watched with empty eyes, burdened by her own guilt. The child lay in a cradle, his face pale and lifeless. The room was shrouded in shadows, except for a ray of light that fell on David's face, as if heaven itself were judging him. The consequences of David's betrayal spread like poison through his family. Amnon, one of his sons, raped his half-sister Tamar. Absalom, another son, murdered Amnon in revenge and later rebelled against David, seeking to seize the throne. Civil war tore the kingdom apart, and David, once beloved by all, found himself fleeing from his own son. Though David repented and was restored in his relationship with God, the scars of his actions never faded. Bathsheba, though she became queen and bore Solomon, the future king of Israel, carried the weight of her role in David's sin. Her silence, her acceptance of events, made her a symbol of the consequences of lust and unchecked power. The story of David and Bathsheba is a somber reminder of how sin, even in the greatest of men, can lead to destruction. David's betrayal of Uriah not only cost a life, but sowed seeds of discord that would affect his family and kingdom for generations. Through this narrative, we see that the price of lust and abuse of power is high, and the consequences of our actions can echo long after the sin is committed. David, old and weary, gazes at the horizon from his palace terrace. Beside him, Solomon, young and full of promise, listens to his father's teachings. In the background, Uriah's shadow looms over the walls, a silent reminder that the past is never forgotten. The sun sets once more, but this time, the light seems dimmer, as if the weight of history has darkened even the heavens. The life of King David is one of the most fascinating and inspiring narratives in the Bible. From his humble beginnings as a shepherd to his rise as Israel's greatest king, David left an indelible legacy, not only through military and political achievements, but also through his deep relationship with God. Though not without his flaws, David is remembered as a man who loved God with all his heart and dedicated his life to serving his people and fulfilling divine purposes. In this narration, we will explore the good things David did for God and his people, highlighting his faith, leadership, devotion, and his contribution to establishing a kingdom that glorified God. Before becoming king, David was a young shepherd in Bethlehem, the youngest son of Jesse. Though his work was humble, David displayed exceptional qualities from an early age. As a shepherd, he learned to care for, protect, and guide his sheep, skills he would later apply in his reign. In the fields of Bethlehem, he developed a deep relationship with God. He spent hours alone, playing his harp and composing psalms that expressed his love and adoration for the Lord. This intimate connection with God prepared him for the challenges he would face. One of David's first acts of bravery occurred when he defended his sheep from a lion and a bear. This episode not only showed his courage, but also his faith in God. David told Saul, "The Lord who delivered me from the paw of the lion and the paw of the bear will deliver me from the hand of this Philistine." 1 Samuel 17:37. This trust in God would be a constant in his life. One of the most iconic moments in David's life was his confrontation with the giant Goliath. While the Israelite army trembled at the Philistines' threat, David, a young man with no military experience, volunteered to face him. Armed only with a sling and 5 stones, David declared, "You come against me with sword and spear and javelin, but I come against you in the name of the Lord Almighty, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied." 1 Samuel 17:45. With a single shot, David struck down Goliath, proving that it is not human strength, but faith in God that ensures victory. This act of bravery not only inspired the Israelite army, but also marked the beginning of David's rise as a leader. His unshakable faith became an example for all the people. Though David was anointed as Israel's future king, he never tried to take the throne by force. Even when Saul, consumed by jealousy, tried to kill him multiple times, David refused to raise his hand against God's anointed. On one occasion, David had the chance to kill Saul in a cave, but instead, he cut off a corner of his robe as proof that he meant no harm. Later, David said to Saul, "May the Lord judge between you and me." One of David's greatest spiritual achievements was returning the Ark of the Covenant to Jerusalem. The Ark, representing God's presence, had been neglected during Saul's reign. David organized a grand procession to bring it to the city, filled with music, dance, and praise. Though the first attempt to move the ark ended in tragedy due to Uzzah's disobedience, David learned his lesson and did it correctly the second time. Dressed in a linen ephod, David danced with all his might before the ark, showing his humility and devotion. This act of worship was a pivotal moment in Israel's history, restoring God's centrality in the life of the people. As a military leader, David led Israel to unprecedented victories. He defeated the Philistines, Moabites, Arameans, and other enemy nations, expanding Israel's borders and securing peace and prosperity for his people. One of his most notable feats was capturing the fortress of Zion, which became the city of David. He also established strategic alliances and strengthened Israel's army, solidifying its position as a regional power. The story of King David and Bathsheba is a raw reminder of how power and position do not make us immune to weakness. David, a man described as being after God's own heart, commits a grave mistake. From his palace, he sees Bathsheba, a beautiful woman, and falls into temptation. What begins as a moment of desire turns into a chain of disastrous decisions: adultery, deceit, and finally, the murder of Uriah, Bathsheba's husband. This story is not just an ancient tale, it is a mirror reflecting our own frailty. How often, in positions of privilege or influence, have we allowed our desires to cloud our judgment? How often have we justified wrong actions, thinking power shielded us from consequences? But the most striking part of this story is not just David's fall, it is his path to redemption. When the prophet Nathan confronts him, David does not deny his guilt or try to justify himself. Instead, he repents deeply. His psalm of repentance, Psalm 51, is one of the most moving expressions of sorrow and seeking forgiveness in sacred literature. This story teaches us that though our actions may have devastating consequences, there is always room for repentance and transformation. David was not the same after this episode. His life and reign bore the scars of his mistakes, but he also became an example of how humility and repentance can open doors to grace. In a world where we often see public figures fall into scandal, the story of David and Bathsheba invites us to reflect. How do we handle our own power and temptations? Are we willing to face our faults with honesty and seek true change? If you enjoyed this, give it a like and subscribe for more content like this. God bless you greatly. Blessings until next time.